the key concepts that I wanted to make clear is that, first of all, like the one question that I'm getting often is, with all of these stimulus packages, who's going to pay for it? Eventually someone has to pay for it. And I'm going to argue that's a complete fallacy. Because, well, first of all, so they say it's public debt, right? So if you...
And it is.
Well, but like, it's public debt because you're avoiding private debt.
That's
if you
true.
don't
Well,
do it, you'll have private debt. So it's literally just a, it's literally just a transfer of one debt to another debt. But, and this, okay, so one of the things that like I think we need to understand is that, and this only applies to countries that have sovereign money, like Australia, which means that you're not depending on euro, which is being produced by the European, the ECB. Instead, you have your own reserve bank like we do. If you've got sovereign money, you can print it as much as you want. And I think this whole idea of printing...
Yeah, but then inflation kicks in.
Well, first of all, there's two aspects to it. In most cases, inflation does not kick in. And secondly, even if it does, it's just setting you back to an equilibrium. As long as you're not trying to interfere with your currency exchange rate, that inflation is fine. Because what's going to happen is, the worst thing that can happen is that the value of the Australian dollar is going to go down, which it already has, by the way. And what that means is that that's
fine for us.
It's fine. It's actually good, because that way your exports become more competitive.
Australia wants a lower dollar than a higher dollar.
Really?
But you know who it hurts? And that's why they bring in these austerity measures. People that have large Australian dollar holdings, basically really rich people whose value diminishes because the Australian dollar has gone down. Most poor people don't have those sort of reserves.
Imagine how abstract your life is if that's what you're looking at in the morning.
Like the dollar.
Of just like, oh no, this predetermined ticker went down to the red. Well, I'm going to have to kill myself now.
That's
just such...
That's why I don't play the stock market.
It's not I've always thought about that. Just the fact that billionaires and stuff are just sitting there just being like, this piece of paper says that I own Brazil.
I know.
Or if you've got like properties, let's say your property was worth $1 million after the Aussie dollar going down and you want a vacation in Greece or something, that value of $1 million is not $1 million in the international market. But so the entire effort to keep the currency, like the UK did that some time ago. I think it was in the 70s. They went through. They have sovereign currency too.
Isn't the dollar going to drop internationally across the board? Like, is this?
Well, so that's what it. So you mean Australian dollar? Right?
No, globally, like. Well, American dollar is going to fucking drop.
American dollar is actually king because what the Americans have like this unprecedented advantage that no other economy has, that their currency is actually reserve currency for the entire world.
Yeah.
So for their dollar to crash, the entire world needs to crash.
I see.
So, but it's different for us. Ours is volatile. So when I say the Australian dollar is going to go down, because we're not controlling it, the international markets are, that's what I mean. It'll go down. Like internationally, it'll go down.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, look, it's not necessarily a horrible thing because we are an export-driven economy. And that means all of our stuff is more competitive overseas.
Yeah, cool.
So basically...
But it will drive up public debt. Private debt. Private debt it'll drive up.
Yeah, it will drive up private debt. But here's the other thing. Like, there's this, what's her name? She's an economist. Her name is Stephanie something. She's an economist in the US, and she was also the economic advisor for Bernie Sanders. And she
looks like she's never laughed at a joke ever. She even heard Russell Peters' bit about Chinese people. Still nothing.
Bad sense of humor.
Yeah, she does. I don't think she does have a sense of humor. But one of the things that she was saying is actually interesting. She was saying that this whole public debt is actually not an economic issue. It's a linguistic issue. She was saying that you're saying it as if it's debt, but what it actually is just recycling of money within your economy. So when you've got like a coronavirus kind of a crash, what you do is you recycle money from your treasury into areas that need it. She's saying that it's almost like moving money from your salaried savings account to your transaction account. Neither of them are debt. It's just transferring of money where it's required. And she's saying if you think of it from that perspective, you basically eliminate all the propaganda material that they will have for austerity measures.
Isn't it pathetic that it's still the same fight from World War II? Keynes figured this out
Yeah.
70 years ago.
What do you mean?
It's just the same old song and dance, year in,
Right.
year out. It's
Cutting public, cutting
no,
funds
it's just
to
like in
public.
times of debt, the government takes the burden and they push out money, because before that, the conventional wisdom was, you just let the recession go its due course, and that resulted in the potato famine.
Yeah.
You know,
And also the depression. Keynes was actually, he was the one, and this is exactly.
but you know what? Actually, it wasn't. It was It was Paul Keating's mentor, Jack Lang. He thought of this. Before
Jack
Keynes.
LaLanne.
What? No, this is an
So-
old idea, Joel.
Huh?
Jack LaLanne.
Public. So in terms of in times of recession, you spend a lot of money on public services like infrastructure building
To boost
and
the
actually
economy.
give scholarships to people. The only point of that is to make
Plasmas.
sure that people you need to keep up your consumer demand, so people have enough money to keep buying stuff. If they can't do it from their own jobs, then you make sure that you give them.
Well,
a
how
job.
old is the idea?
like
hundreds of
100
years
years?
old?
Yeah, not hundreds.
But so what's
close to 100?
But what's the
yeah.
disadvantage?
It's really weird that it took us. How long has society been a thing with money?
don't-
No, this is but that's the whole
us a
tragedy of
long
the
while.
situation. This is not what I'm saying is not new. It was changed with Thatcherism and Reaganism.
Yeah.
After the Second World War, FDR, they knew exactly how to deal with this sort of issue. That's why we had this incredible period of growth.
they are
And Thatcher and Ronald Reagan really were the Today FM of politicians, weren't they? Just like all the classic hits, just bringing back these
Yeah.
old done ideas.
Yeah. But that's what we've been doing, though. They've been
What?
giving out they've been giving out money and surpluses to the public so that the economy doesn't crash. That's
yeah,
what they've been doing.
now they are.
Yeah.
But eventually, when this all goes back to normal, companies they're gonna want to pursue austerity measures. That's the difference between.
And they
I feel like
this as
Liberal
a
and the Labour
backdoor to
government, yeah.
introduce
Wait,
all
what
the
does that
work
mean?
choices
What's
of all-
austerity measures?
So austerity measure is, let's say you were receiving $500 because you're disabled a week, right? For whatever reason, for
So
NDIS.
it's just disabled services. That's what.
no, it's for any sort of
No,
public
Mister.
spending, like doles, HEX, whatever money that the government is spending
Oh,
on
so that is-
individuals.
Yeah, in austerity measures, you know when you conned the Australian public into buying a Gibson guitar when you just pretend
Fender.
you're on the dole
Fender,
for like
Fender.
a year?
Get your facts right.
Yeah, the Fender. In austerity measures, you wouldn't be able to get that guitar.
That's
mate.
probably a good thing.
No, it teaches him a lesson.
But I understand what you're saying. Like people that need
stick economics. Where is it again? Right.
that hurt too much. The people that legitimately rely on government subsidies will not get them. That's what you're saying.
Pretty
No,
much.
it's not only will they not get them, but the whole burden of this supposed public debt, which, like I've said before, is a bit of a fallacy.
Yeah.
is put on the weakest shoulders of society. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
austerity
yeah.
is.
Yeah, I get you.
What they say is they'll cut even more corporate tax because they'll say that's going to encourage job growth and it'll eventually lead to more taxes, which does not happen.
You use every excuse there is to cut corporate tax. It's just that every now and then that excuse works. But you could really summarize the Liberal Party's entire 75-year history as one policy over and over, which is cut corporate tax. That's the answer to everything.
Would you say that cutting corporate tax is like a band-aid sort of fix in that it's kind of maybe it boosts job growth
It doesn't even do that.
First of all, it doesn't even boost job growth. What it does is it can potentially increase foreign direct investment.
Yeah, that's-
because companies that are
Rio
stationed
Tinto is
elsewhere.
sweet, basically.
Yeah, but
But the 40 years of data that we have on that shows that it's just it's a scam.
yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't
Work
benefit
right.
the average.
Unless
Bismarck.
you are going to the point, like some of these other tax havens where you're saying, we're giving you zero tax. to put your money
Barbados
here.
or whatever, yeah.
But even,
Unless you're willing to go to that level,
Yeah.
it's going to do
but
nothing.
even that is it's the race to the bottom. That's
Exactly.
what,
Yeah.
every country makes it a little less so that it incentivizes other companies like Google to come and park all their investment over there until some other bullshit country is going to reduce it even a few percentage to a point where eventually you can't even tax corporations anymore because you've got 0% tax.
But so is
I
your
still reckon the best thing to do is just increase the corporate tax rate back to the old days of 45% or whatever. And then all the companies that go, you can leave. It's yeah, fine. The ones that stay will make up for the revenue.
you know what,
Just unfairly tax burden them. This is the thing. Every time I go into my accountant's office and she's sitting there being you can take advantage of this, you can take advantage of that. I must be the only. She looks at me as if I'm disabled every time.
You're I
because
don't
I'm
wanna
just
do
sitting
that.
there and I'm just look, I like the fact that schools have money.
Yeah.
And she's just like, what are you, some kind of idiot? It's insane.
A moral man. So do you think, what do you predict? Do you predict that if they do cut, they do those measures, whatever it is, those measures, like, will it just be like, Ali, do you predict that it's time for us to crack open each other's heads and feast on the gooey insides? Yes, I do.
Well, eventually, I guess, at some point when you keep putting
Very
heavy
articulate.
burdens on the weakest shoulders, they're going to snap.
So shit's going to hit the fan. I thought we were just going to breeze straight through this, because even the fact that Morrison just basically adopted a policy from the unions and Labor, because he was just like, oh shit, this is in Hawaii.
Yeah, they did that. And
After
then
a
they,
lot of pressure
after
on
like
them.
2 or 3 weeks, they realized, oh, hang on, no, I figured out how to fuck this up.
But that's actually to their credit.
Really?
To their credit, that's
No, but-
actually a really good. The wage subsidy program is actually pretty good.
Yeah, but it's not his.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
his.
it's not his.
No, but what
And
did
on top of that,
copy it
like
from
they
New Zealand?
they changed it as well.
what do they do?
So they increased the waiting time more or less to force small businesses to close and put their employees on the job seeker payment, which is a lot less than job keeper.
Oh, I see.
And so they're saving money on that. So pretty much, as always, they figured out how to make it a dole for larger corporations.
I don't know a single person that had applied for any of that sort of stuff receiving money yet. Do you know anyone?
No one. It's not. It's not
I
been
don't think
given out.
anyone's
It's not been
received
given out
it.
yet.
So that means people are still. Well,
Still,
I guess
no, it hasn't been given out
the
yet.
6-month freeze on mortgages and rents helps. but
This is what's happened. What they've said is, look, companies should start paying out the payments to their employees now, and the government will reimburse you. But
companies won't do it. It'll ruin
No,
the liquidity.
they are doing it. They are.
yeah,
doing
but
it.
like
Not smaller.
not to the
No.
same level.
Smaller businesses can't carry that burden.
Yeah,
Ours is doing it.
Well,
Yeah, but
Your
yours is
business
a
probably has
successful
savings.
Small business. Think about all the other shops in Lithgow where you're
like
just
the
like, can I have
vegan-
chips? And they just give you
they
McCain's
were-
chips. Can I have them cooked?
Or like the vegan donut shop down the road. Like, how are they going to survive?
they have zero liquidity. They have no savings.
Come on, that place should have
Your-
closed.
I guess free market works sometimes.
Yeah, it does. But okay, no, that is a good point though. The ones that literally don't have money in the bank or money to borrow to pay their staff. So I mean, it hasn't.
No, because it's the exact opposite of what Labor did under Rudd, which was just inject the money into everybody's bank account,
Yeah.
one hit. And that's just gives the money straight to the people, straight to the dumbasses that are just going to run out and be like, oh, what a coincidence. The plasma screen's $999. And
What they should have actually done.
That's what you're supposed to do when there's a downturn. It's
not 1,000.
That would have been so. First of
I'm
all,
saving money.
it's immediate relief. But what they should have also done is, in addition to doing that, they should have done the Centrelink thing, because paying everyone a certain amount of money also gives people that don't necessarily need a lot of money. And that's good for consumer for consumer demand, as in like things keep getting bought. But
the question is, where's
people
the
that
money
really
come from,
need
right?
it.
Can the
Well, that's what
government
I'm saying.
afford to do it?
The government can, if you've got sovereign money like us.
Yeah.
Which is that.
What's the budget? What's the yearly budget the government has?
Close to 450 billion.
It's a lot of green. Damn, they can afford it.
No, it doesn't
That's
work like
such
that.
a
They
good
can afford-
realization in Miss Love's head. Whoa, that's more than I made last year.
That's slightly more than How many guitars does ScoMo own? 50.
But Miss Love,
his
that's what I'm
name's
like
ScoMo.
saying. It doesn't even matter what your budget is. If you're a stable economy like Australia that prints its own money, you can theoretically, you have infinity money.
Yeah, I'm too
Because
stupid
every
at
money
economics
is
to understand.
basically so when you look at like $10, like Australian $10, it's not pegged to like the gold like it was back in the day. All it is, it's an IOU. It's a trust that my government is not going to collapse.
Yeah.
And so trust the fact that this $10 is worth something. The day Australian government or like the economy and like the whole country collapses, that $10 or that $50 is going to be worthless. So it just depends on the trust that you have a stable government. So technically speaking, you have infinity money. You
Really?
can inject that money into what it eventually
And they
does
did just
is-
recently print 8% of the GDP.
Yeah.
It's proof of it. And they decided it on a dime. The same government
So
that's
it's never
constantly
done.
saying, we don't have money to properly fund NDIS, which is like the Reserve Bank said, 8% of the GDP. I don't see a problem with that. Can we just think about this for an hour? No. All right, just print it then.
What
That's
do
pretty
you,
much
the
what
Liberal
happened.
Party. What do you think we can do? Print money? Yes. oh, well, yeah, we can print money. Money doesn't grow on trees. Yeah,
But then they did exactly what the Liberal Party did and allowed the major banks to dole out that money to whoever they wanted it to be doled to instead of just injecting it into the economy.
So ideally, you're saying, I mean, look, basically, Ali, what you're saying is the ideal situation is because they've adopted a lot of the policies from the unions and labor and stuff, or those kind of policies. Their initial reaction hasn't been perfect because they've sort of screwed it up down the line. But essentially,
they delayed it.
Yeah, but essentially,
they had to do it after pressure.
Yeah, but initially it was going well, and you're saying it would.
Initially, their first stimulus package was one of the most.
That was
the worst thing that I've ever seen.
Okay, I'm talking
about the wage subsidy plan. I think was good, and it actually would save.
But what I'm saying, as long as they don't introduce those measures of just instantaneous
what
cuts,
I'm saying,
then it'll be fine,
I'm saying, it's a semantic thing. You're saying the public debt is increasing. Who's going to pay for it? I'm saying the debt already existed. It was private debt that is now being converted into public debt because we don't want people to go bankrupt. So it's not that the stimulus is creating public debt. It's the coronavirus that has created some level of debt. What I'm saying is if you've got sovereign currency, that's a problem that you can easily overcome.
Yeah. No,
you're screwed if you're Zimbabwe and your currency is Australian dollars. That's when you're screwed. Or if you're like Italy and you depend on euro because you don't have control over your monetary policy.
But what is the solution? What would the solution be? Now, after this passes, let's say,
the solution would be that even if you want to get a surplus, and I think Jordan's in the best position because he has his entire stand-up was about that. But again, this whole budget surplus thing is kind of overrated.
Yeah, but
you can run deficits.
Yeah.
It's not, deficits are not a problem. It's essentially just an IOU of the government, and the government will eventually make money. Australia is not going to collapse. You'll be fine.
So essentially is what a ideal situation is to, if you were reliant on government subsidies post-corona, you should still get them. And then the rest of the people get back to work. That's basically it.
Yeah, we'll get back to work. And even you don't need to continue these specific wage subsidies for a long time. Ideally, the more, the better. But what you need to make sure is that the brunt of this public debt is not taken by people that desperately need money.